Hello, and we're bringing to you a series of videos on some of the main highlights of the important watch auctions to be held here in Geneva in a few days. We will start our coverage with auction house Philips in association with Bax & Russo, and it's always a pleasure to meet Mr. Aurel Bax, watch auctioneer, but I could also say watch storyteller, as it is just a feat to listen to him when he talks about the watches put on sale on the 13th and 14th of May. Well, he definitely knows how to do this, reason why we didn't edit much of his speech, but nevertheless separated this presentation in two parts, and there are some pretty sweet lots that we will now unveil to you. So from more reasonable but very interesting timepieces to some exceptional lots that will most certainly beat some previous record set, especially for Rolex, but no ordinary Rolex. So let's simply discover this with Mr. Bax.
We have prepared a small selection this time, but a very varied collection. And I would like to start with something just to get your attention. Have a look here what I show you here. You see this pink gold Omega?
Yes.
I will put it down here. Now look what I do with my hands. And now look what I have in my left hand. Now you wonder if this is magic. It's not magic. It's just one of these amazing discoveries that we experience so often in our field. We have here two identical pink gold Omegas. They were made in 1958 to commemorate the Olympic Games in Melbourne, Australia. And whereas each of them is already quite a pretty and rare collector's watch, we have here two in absolutely mint, unused, unworn condition. The two watches have a very interesting story. Not just have they both survived in perfect condition. We have the original Omega leather strap, the original buckle. We also have the original Omega certificate. But what's more amazing is that the two watches have, and you will see that here, consecutive serial numbers. In fact, they were both bought in Rangoon, Burma, in the same shop on the same day in 1958. Now, how amazing is that over half a century later, two watches survive in mint condition, they have traveled the planet, and they've never been separated. We named them the Olympic Twins, and I think these are delightful collector's watches that offer great value, great quality at a relatively humble starting price.
Does that mean that you expect naturally those watches to be bought together?
Well, they are offered as one lot, so obviously the buyer will have two watches. I do hope that they will remain together for another couple of years, or hopefully forever and ever. We don't know why they were together so long, and I think it would be nice to leave them together. As we are already talking about Omega, one of my personal favorites is this chronograph from the late 1930s. It is from 1939 in stainless steel with the typical olive-shaped chronograph pushers. But besides the exceptional condition, what is really a highlight of this watch is the black lacquer galvanic dial with a number of technical scientific scales in a variety of colors. You see here a color of sort of bronze copper outside, that's for the tachometer, but then you have also the hour and the time indication in yellow, matching with the hands, but then inside, in the center again, we have a chronograph scale in that warm bronze color. The dial and the case overall are of exceptional condition. It's rare for a non-waterproof watch to survive 3/4 of a century in such condition, and I guess no one will challenge me on this statement. This is probably as good looking as any chronograph by any maker can be. Omega was one of the foremost makers of chronographs back at the time. They were also for many decades the official Olympic timekeeper, and this watch is a premium example from that pre-war era. Speaking of chronographs, no auction is complete without a wonderful selection of Heuer chronographs from the period. And this here is one of the most sort of iconic Heuer designs. It's the Autavia, and collectors have nicknamed it the Joe Siffert. Back in the late 60s, in the early 70s, it was the watch to be worn by Formula One racers. In fact, we know of a number of Formula One drivers who have worn before and sometimes also during the races these iconic, epic chronographs. Clay Regazzoni was one of them. We have Joe Siffert, of course. We have many drivers, and these are now carrying the nicknames of these drivers. This example here comes with the tachometer bezel. These models were available with different bezels, but on top of that is in absolutely mint condition. It still features the Heuer sticker from 45 years ago, still the period bracelet with those typical holes here, the buckle. And I must say, when I look at this watch, I think it's today as modern as probably back then it was. It features the revolutionary automatic self-winding caliber that is wound, if necessary, with the crown on the left side. So it was actually also a symbol of modern times. It was amongst the very first automatic calibers. And because the crown is not here, the chronograph can be smoothly, practically activated without the crown in the middle. These watches can still be had at very attractive estimates, and I believe whether you compare them to a Daytona or any other epic chronograph from the period, they bring us back to this lifestyle where you can smell burnt rubber, gasoline, the pit stop action. I think these are very, very cool vintage watches to be enjoyed, to be collected these days.
The fact that you still have like almost pristine sticker behind it, does it mean that it was never worn?
I believe that this example is truly unworn. It's really a mint watch. Now, of course, it would be nice if we can keep it as is, because it displays how the watch actually left the Heuer workshops 45 years ago, in terms of its finish to the case, in terms of all components. It would be a shame if it is now destroyed or damaged. But of course, one can carefully wear it and enjoy it occasionally. Still talking about chronographs, one of my wow moments over the last few months is this square chronograph signed Gobelin. This is a chronograph that, if you had asked me a year ago, Aurel, does this type of watch exist? I would have said no. Why would I have said that? Well, square chronographs were very typical for the 1930s and 40s. We know examples signed by Rolex, we know examples signed by Universal, amongst others, and they were usually quite small. And by quite small, I mean the width would be below 30 millimeters. This example here has an impressive width and height of 34 millimeters. That is potentially the largest square chronographs I have ever come across in my career. Another amazing feature is the fact that the case is in white gold. If we look back to the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you will struggle to find any vintage chronograph of any shape in white gold. I think we can count them on one hand. So rare is white gold as a material used for chronographs back then, in the mid-20th century. It has an incredibly clean and attractive two-tone dial. You see this lovely circle that shines in a different off-white silver tone. And I could not stop thinking, why is this watch so big in appearance and so big on the wrist? After all, it's only, I would say only, quote unquote, 34 millimeters in width. So I started doing math with my colleagues, and what we figured out is that if you take a square that is 34 millimeters in height and width, it matches the same surface overall like a round watch with over 38 millimeters in diameter. And 38 millimeters, as we both know, is a proper watch. At the same time, we figured out that a square with 34 millimeters is 25, more than a quarter more in surface than a round watch in 34 millimeters. And 34 millimeters is a typical size for a classic round vintage wristwatch. So the visual impact can be scientifically explained. It also has a really nice solid feel. It's quite a heavy watch given its vintage age, and the condition is absolutely remarkable. It has crisp hallmarks that we can see on the sides. The dial has never been restored, and this shows once again that not only scholarship is not yet complete, there's still discoveries to be made every day in our field. It also shows that Göbelin, a distinguished name here in Switzerland for watches and jewelry, has had a very demanding clientele back after World War II, who probably ordered this piece. I cannot imagine that Göbelin just produced this watch and put it in the window hoping that eventually somebody will purchase it. So what we hold here is a very exclusive, exceptionally rare collector's wristwatch that demonstrates that it doesn't always have to be in the millions if one wants to secure a truly exceptional unicorn type vintage collector's watch.
So you heard the man, there are ways for all of us to get a grip of original and historical timepieces at a more or less affordable price. So this is it for part 1, and in part 2 we will step up a bit on this statement as we will go over some of the top lots of the auction. So see you real soon.